This video will cover what I would do if I were going to start a new PI business in 2023. And I can tell you I might do things a little differently than I did back in 2008. Welcome to the PI Guide channel. My name is John Morris. I am a licensed professional private investigator. Going back to 2008 when I first became a PI, I knew literally nothing about being a private investigator. Now, don't get me wrong. I had some ideas of what being a PI was like, but I didn't know the true story regarding the profession. I knew based on what I had seen on TV that a good PI would usually be driving a pretty snazzy car, and I wanted to have one of those fancy cars for myself. I also knew that a good PI always solved his case in 30 minutes or less, and man, I'll tell you what, a 30-minute workday sounded pretty good to me. And I knew I would need to get myself one of them fancy offices at the far end of a dimly lit hallway in a building downtown in some obscure location. Okay, obviously that is what TV and the movies make the profession out to be, and I didn't really expect any of those things, but I knew little else besides what TV and the movies had told me about being a private investigator. What I did know a lot about was business, and I figured I could take those skills with me to build my new PI business. I saw an ad online from a larger firm that stated they were looking for a self-employed, subcontracted surveillance investigator. No experience is required, and they would train the right person. And I said to myself, this could be a lot of fun. So I called them, set up an interview, did what little research I could way back then as to what a PI could do, and I got the gig, and the rest is history. Now, a lot of what I know today about the PI business, I learned with OJT on the job training, and let me tell you what, there was a lot of trial and error along the way too. So as I look back at how I started back then, I know if I started a new PI business today, it would look a bit different to be sure. The first thing I would do is get a good business plan put together from the get-go. I got my first gig back in 2008, and then I worried about building a business plan. This was problematic as the cart was definitely in front of the horse. I had to make a lot of business decisions on the fly with little to no research or thought put into those decisions. For instance, the gig I took paid on a subcontract basis, so I was, for all intents and purposes, a self-employed individual. Now, I did make a company, EFCO LLC, but I made that company literally the same day I was offered the gig. You see, I had to have a company name for them to write the checks to. They weren't going to make checks payable to my name, and this makes sense. They were covering their six. They were going to make sure that they were contracting a company rather than employing an individual. Looking in hindsight today, I would probably take a lot more time to explore a good business name for an investigation firm. Now, there is nothing wrong with the name of my business. At the time, I wanted a business name that could cross over into many areas of business, and it does just that, and that suits me fine today. But if I was starting up a new private investigations business, I would want it to have a business name that is directly related to the profession itself. Today, I might start up a business like Colorado Professional Private Investigators LLC or Professional Investigators of Colorado LLC or something like that. The reason being is marketing. I would then have that business name also be my website name like professionalinvestitorsofcolorado.com. Having the name and the website both reflect keywords would make the website much stronger and easier to infiltrate a market through SEO in the ever-busy online world we live in today. Another thing I would do right from the beginning is get involved with my state PI association. Now, back when I got started, I didn't even know about the PPIC, the Colorado PI Association, but had I known, I would have gotten involved much sooner. That leads to getting as much PI training as I could right from the start. If I was starting out today, I would get all the training I could while I was younger and, more importantly, while I am more motivated. I waited several years before I started exploring training opportunities for myself as a PI, and that, I feel, really hindered my growth as a private investigator. I spent those first few years slamming case after case, doing injured worker surveillance jobs 6 to 7 days a week, and there is nothing wrong with that. I gained a lot of experience over those years. But man, once I discovered what other opportunities were out there for me and what training was available through my state PI association and national associations like NCISS, I was like, man, I really missed that boat, didn't I? But I got on board. I started taking as many courses and classes and reading as many books as I could. And then I was able to begin expanding my horizons and growing my business. That leads to that business plan I never had time to build in great detail when I started. Had I had that in place from the get-go, I would have most likely had thought about training and getting into multiple areas of investigation. If I was starting a PI business today, I may very well still find myself that sweet subcontractor surveillance gig, but I would instantly start working on building my skills and network to help me expand in other market areas and gain new customers. I would not, as I did back in 2008, put all my eggs into one basket. I would not have just one client. I would not just have one area of specialty, and I most definitely would not be going it alone, trying to figure it out all by myself. Another big thing I would do if I were starting a PI business in 2023 is hiring a tax accountant for my first year. I did my own accounting, did my own taxes, and I toughed it out year after year for a while, but then I realized I was spending countless hours doing taxes, not getting paid for that time, not earning any money for that time, just so I could pay my taxes. Having hired a professional tax accountant has taken all that burden away, and now I no longer dread tax season nearly as much, as I know my taxes are being done correctly and I get a scheduled payment plan for estimated taxes to follow for the next year. I would also start my business while still employed, at least part-time. I know this one's hard, but I know that starting a new business takes time and commitment. Based on my many years of business experience, I knew it would take me 3 to 5 years before it became a well-paying, stable income. And I did have other businesses I was running back then, so I had plenty of things to keep me busy. But had I been employed at least part-time, I would have had some regular income to count on, and those slow, dead slow times would not have put nearly as much stress on my life. You see, in this business, when it slows down, man, it slows down. The bottom can fall out without notice, and you are left wondering what happened. Now, I have been in the PI business long enough. I know when to expect those slowdowns and when to expect those busy periods. But when I first got started, it really took me by surprise. Money management would be huge on my list of things if I were starting a PI business in 2023 too. You need to plan your cash flow properly, and that cash flow needs to include your paycheck and your retirement planning, folks. When I first started my PI business, I did not take into consideration my retirement planning. I was so used to working in the corporate world, having that 401k or some other retirement plan, I forgot all about that when I became self-employed. Now, I do have a plan in place today, but that was another boat I missed at the beginning. I know there is a good old Social Security plan, but 2 things to keep in mind. First, can it sustain your lifestyle? And for most people, the answer is no. Second, as a self-employed individual, you pay twice as much in a Social Security. When you are employed, your employer pays half of that. But when you are self-employed, you enjoy the full investment. So make sure you have a Roth IRA or some other IRA or some other retirement plan in place so you can appropriately plan those later stages of your PI business in the latter years of your working life. Now, another thing I would do if I was starting my new PI business in 2023 is to find out exactly what PIs are making today. You see, when I got started, I thought I was making good money, but I was really at the lower end of the pay scale, to be sure. Now, I did some research recently regarding what PIs earn today, and I made this video that goes over those findings, so check it out now.